Welcome to our show, Immigration Briefing. Today, we've got some intriguing stories lined up for you. First up, Kentucky's primary elections are heating up with some fierce GOP battles in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. Notably, Terry Hatton and Brian Orms are vying for an empty statehouse seat in District 67, with Orms facing some serious charges from April. Stay tuned for the latest updates on these key races. Next, we dive into a revealing report on how some of the UK's biggest companies and institutions are raking in the profits while offloading their costs onto the public. From universities exploiting foreign students to courier services like Deliveroo and Uber Eats, the exploitation and immigration crime are rampant. George Eaton calls for the public to stop letting these companies profit at their expense. In entertainment news, Alfonso Ribeiro, beloved for his role as Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, opens up about how the iconic role became a sacrifice that ultimately ended his acting career. Ribeiro shares his bittersweet feelings about the role that defined him but also pigeonholed his career. Please stay tuned for detailed coverage of these stories and more. Yahoo US, as Kentucky gears up for its primary election, the spotlight is on several heated races in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. Among the most controversial is the contest for the statehouse seat in District 67, where Republican candidate Brian Orms, charged with felony first-degree strangulation, faces off against Terry Hatton. Orms' campaign is marred by allegations of menacing a 17-year-old, yet his signs remain visible across Campbell County. Another significant race pits incumbent state Representative Kim Moser against Karen Campbell of the Kentucky Liberty Caucus in District 64. Moser, a former nurse and chair of the Health Services Committee, faces a tough challenge from the conservative Campbell. Meanwhile, in District 66, GOP candidates Ed Massey and T.J. Roberts engage in a bitter battle filled with personal attacks. The primary also features races for empty Senate seats in Districts 11 and 17, with candidates vying to succeed long-serving Senators John Schickel and Damon Thayer. These races could reshape the political landscape in northern Kentucky, testing the endurance of the so-called Liberty candidates who rose to prominence in 2022. Telegraph. In a scathing critique of modern business practices, it's revealed that some of the world's wealthiest companies and institutions are thriving by offloading their operational costs onto the public. Universities, for instance, benefit from graduate visas that allow foreign students to live and work in Britain, yet many of these graduates earn less than the minimum wage, contributing little to the economy. The report highlights that 27% of graduate visa holders are unemployed, with many from countries like India, Nigeria, China, and Pakistan earning significantly less than their peers. This practice not only benefits universities financially but also places a burden on the public. Similarly, companies like Amazon, Uber, and Deliveroo exploit loopholes to minimize their tax liabilities and shift costs. Uber, for example, was found responsible for 14,000 fraudulent journeys due to unauthorized drivers, highlighting the company's reliance on dubious practices. These hidden subsidies and cost-shifting mechanisms burden the public while enriching private entities, calling for a re-evaluation of how business models impact society. Yahoo US, Alfonso Ribeiro, beloved for his role as Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, opens up about the bittersweet impact of the character on his acting career. In an interview with Closer Weekly, Ribeiro reflects on how the iconic role became both a blessing and a curse, stalling his acting opportunities as audiences couldn't see him beyond Carlton. Despite this, Ribeiro cherishes the camaraderie and joyous moments shared with the cast, particularly the pre-show rituals in Will Smith's dressing room. Although he hasn't taken on significant acting roles recently, Ribeiro finds fulfillment in hosting shows like Dancing with the Stars and America's Funniest Home Videos. His career began at a young age with a lead role in Broadway's The Tap Dance Kid and a memorable Pepsi commercial with Michael Jackson. Now a father of 4, Ribeiro supports his children's interests, whether in show business or sports, emphasizing the importance of letting them pursue their passions. His story underscores the complexities of typecasting in Hollywood and the enduring legacy of beloved TV characters. Nikkei Asia, Japan's endeavors to attract foreign startups have yet to yield significant results despite various initiatives such as special startup visas. As of 2022, only 386 startup visas had been issued in 7 years. Japan's stringent visa requirements, including rules that prevent visa holders' family members from working and necessitate status reviews every 6 months, have contributed to its low attractiveness ranking by the OECD. However, Japan's stable society and growing international interest in its culture and lifestyle present untapped potential. Fukuoka has emerged as a success story, establishing a startup cafe that offers free consultations in multiple languages, aiding in recruitment and visa advice, and fostering a supportive community for entrepreneurs. The broader challenge lies in replicating such supportive environments across other Japanese cities to create a sustainable ecosystem for foreign startups. CBC, Canada's visa application process for Gaza residents with family in Canada has come under scrutiny after a medical worker was asked if he had treated Hamas members. This question, seen in a letter from the Canadian Immigration Office, has been criticized by lawyers for promoting a violation of the Geneva Conventions, which mandate medical care for all wounded individuals regardless of affiliations. The Special Temporary Visa Program, launched on January 9, has faced numerous hurdles, including complex application requirements and difficulties in arranging safe passage from Gaza to Cairo for final screenings. Between January and April, over 7,500 people applied, but only 179 visas had been granted by late April. The controversial question posed to the medical worker highlights deeper issues within Canada's immigration system, which lawyers argue often operates in a centralized and disorganized manner, leading to discriminatory practices. The Toronto Star, legal experts are challenging the Canadian government's visa screening process for Gaza residents after a medical worker was asked if he had treated Hamas fighters. The letter, sent by a Canadian immigration officer, inquired about medical care provided to Hamas members and how the applicant avoided consequences if he refused treatment. Immigration lawyer Kelly O'Connor condemned the question as a breach of the Geneva Convention. The special visa program, intended to help Canadian citizens and permanent residents bring extended family members from Gaza, has been fraught with difficulties, including extensive documentation and the necessity for applicants to travel to Cairo for final processing. Despite thousands of applications, only a small fraction have been approved. The incident underscores systemic issues within Canada's immigration procedures, which lawyers argue can lead to discriminatory and unjust treatment of applicants. Australian Broadcasting Corporation, buried within the federal budget papers lies a figure that should have been a cause for celebration, yet it reflects a troubling demographic trend. Paid parental leave, PPL, is expected to decrease by $92.1 million in 2024 to 25, and $521.3 million over 5 years from 2023 to 24 to 2027 to 28, driven by lower-than-expected births. This decline in birth rates is a demographic freight train heading towards Australia, with the nation's birth rate at 1.6, well below the replacement rate of 2.1. The government is acutely aware of the pressures families face, and without alleviating these pressures, having children becomes increasingly difficult. Dr. Liz Allen, a demographer at the Australian National University, highlights that housing affordability, gender inequality, financial insecurity, and climate change are significant barriers to having children. The debate over migration further complicates the issue, with immigration helping to offset the declining birth rate, yet polarizing opinions about how many migrants should be allowed into the country persist. CNN, Donald Trump's first term in office laid the groundwork for a radical immigration agenda that could see mass arrests, detention, and deportation if he wins a second term. The executive order he signed in January 2017, intended to ban entry from certain Muslim-majority nations, sparked protests and legal challenges but eventually reshaped U.S. immigration policy. Trump and his advisors are planning a second-term agenda that builds on the lessons learned from his first term, aiming for rapid implementation of policies that would involve restructuring federal law enforcement and deploying the National Guard and U.S. troops if necessary. Stephen Miller, a key advisor, likened their plans to the scale of projects like the Transcontinental Railroad. The agenda includes revoking visas for radical anti-American foreigners, curtailing refugee and asylum claims, and re-implementing the Title 42 authority to shut down the southern border. Trump's campaign rhetoric frames the current migrant crisis as an invasion, and his allies believe public sentiment on immigration has shifted in their favor, creating an opportunity to enact their aggressive policy ambitions. Telegraph, record levels of immigration have driven a third of the rent growth in the UK since COVID, according to new analysis by Capital Economics. In the 2 years to June 2023, immigration led to an additional 430,000 households seeking to rent homes, pushing rents 11% higher than they would have been otherwise. Between mid-2021 and early 2024, UK rents rose by 30%, nearly double the 17% increase in wages over the same period. The rental crisis is exacerbated by high mortgage rates locking first-time buyers out of the housing market, but immigration remains the dominant factor. Net immigration hit unprecedented levels, with 745,000 in 2022 and 672,000 in the 12 months to June 2023. This influx has significantly increased demand in the rental sector, particularly in major cities like London. The Center for Policy Studies warned that immigration is exacerbating the housing crisis, as government targets to build 300,000 homes a year have not been met, failing to keep pace with the growing demand. The Sydney Morning Herald, Peter Dutton, the opposition leader, delivered a speech that painted a grim yet accurate picture of Australia's current state. His delivery was gentle, a stark contrast to his typical strident persona, which helped balance the dark content of his address. Dutton highlighted issues such as the difficulty of seeing a doctor, high prices, and the challenges of buying or renting a house. However, his proposed solution, cutting immigration, seems overly simplistic and fails to address the broader, more complex problems. While migration does impact certain areas, it is not the root cause of all societal issues. Dutton's fixation on migration risks making him appear as a one-dimensional leader, unable to offer comprehensive solutions. His speech, although broad, was thin on actionable details, much like the government's budget, and left many wondering what either side will campaign on in the future. Washington Post, in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, a crackdown on Haitian migrants has led to daily raids by immigration agents and military troops. These raids often involve breaking into homes, extorting money, and even taking bribes to allow deported Haitians back into the country. The situation has left Haitians vulnerable to severe abuses, including physical and sexual assaults, as reported by U.S. and UN officials. The Dominican government, under President Luis Abinader, has ramped up deportations as Haiti faces political and social turmoil. Despite acknowledging abuses, Abinader's administration continues to enforce strict immigration controls, supported by many Dominicans who fear the spillover of lawlessness from Haiti. The crackdown has disrupted lives, led to allegations of human rights abuses, and created a climate of fear and exploitation among Haitian migrants. Telegraph, Ireland's migration system is overwhelmed, leading to significant local discontent and economic strain. In Drogheda, the sudden use of the town's largest hotel to house asylum seekers has caused a sharp drop in tourism, affecting businesses like Brian Moore's pub. The influx of asylum seekers, driven in part by the UK's Rwanda deportation policy, has nearly tripled, with the Irish government struggling to provide adequate housing amidst a severe housing crisis. Tensions are high, with some locals feeling ignored by the government, leading to rising support for independent candidates and a potential shift towards the far right. The situation is exacerbated by high inflation and a lack of consultation from the government, leaving many residents frustrated and fearful for their future. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.